there are a lot of threats to Bitcoin right now. We are going to go through a shitty period here over the next 3 to 5 years. This is going to be a really difficult time. Saylor, I think that he, is a great spokesman for Bitcoin. He's done a tremendous amount for adoption, but he gets things wrong in my mind. One of the things that he's got dicked up is if I'm right and in 5 years or 4 years, Bitcoin's $1 million a coin, you think they're going to be happy for you? Bitcoin is a serious monster. It is a virus. It is spreading everywhere. You're not going to stop it. Bitcoin just goes up and to the right forever. If you want Bitcoin to succeed, you've got to fight for it. You know what? I'm ready. And you need to be too.
Today, I'm excited to welcome George Bodine back to the podcast. George is a professional artist, ex-oil field worker, cab driver, miner, ex-cop, Navy fighter pilot, Top Gun grad, and a Delta pilot. Great to see you again, George.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It sounds almost every time when you say that, it almost sounds like I'm at a bar and I'm trying to make up stories about my life or something. But no, it is true. And again, as we've always said in the past when we talk together, obviously, if that's correct, then I don't have any experience or any formal training in finance. My degree is in marketing of all things. And in fact, I'm a college dropout at first, and I had to go back to college. I didn't even get through high school. So the good news about that is you can always reinvent yourself. I've had an incredible life, and it's just been a constant reinvention of what my story is. I grew up in trailer parks when I was a kid. I was in a trailer until I was 12 years old. So you can go anywhere you want. You just have to have a vision, and you've got to have a tough will to get where you want to go in life.
Yeah, well, I love your background. And what you're saying is this is not financial advice. And have you ever had people come up to you and say, you told us to buy Bitcoin?
No, I haven't. In fact, I'm very fortunate. I'm going to tell you something. I was recently exposed to a young man. He must have been about 20 years old, maybe 19, and he was a skateboarder. He was over in Prague, and he came up to me and he said some things that are so, I don't think I'll ever forget it. I mean, and this young man said I made a difference in his life, and that's pretty damn cool. I mean, what am I doing this for? Why am I actually having a podcast with you today? My goal here is twofold. And when I first started doing this, just a few months ago, maybe it's been 6 months now, I don't know. My goal was to try and either onboard people, which is difficult to do. So I thought maybe if somebody's wavering, they might listen to me and be at least inspired enough that they could go out there and start doing some research on Bitcoin. Secondly, I wanted to help people that were in the space to understand what they own, how precious it is, and that there is a limited time for us to be stacking Bitcoin, and that you should not be trading or putting your Bitcoin at risk in any way, shape, or form, because it, again, is, the most precious asset you could own. It's the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. So those were my goals. That's why I'm doing this. And to hear something positive like that it means a lot to me. Really does.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are many of those stories, George. I was just talking to someone yesterday who was saying how many people he thought you had orange pilled. But like everybody, you are also on your own journey, and you just did attend the Bitcoin conference in Prague. And you mentioned that this changed things a little bit for you. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it really did. Prague was a great event. And what did I discover in Prague? Well, for one thing, the event itself, it's all Bitcoiners. No shitcoiners allowed. There were no politicians there. The people that I met there were just people like me. I mean, just, working stiffs and people that, you could just sit down, have a beer with, talk to about Bitcoin and this journey that we're all on. Some of them were what I call toxic maxis, Bitcoiners. And you know what? I used to consider myself that myself. I was a Bitcoin maxi, and I had a lot of toxicity. But, I kind of moved away from that. And I think it had something to do with my mindset, feeling that we had won or we were in a great spot now. And, I just kind of relaxed my guard. Being around these people, it just made me realize that I needed to get back to the basics, Bitcoin basics. That's what we're talking about. And part of that there's a reason why Bitcoin, maxis exist. And I see that now. We are kind of in the fight for Bitcoin. And I don't believe, like I used to, that we've won necessarily. I think that we are engaged in a fight that's going to go on for a long time, and that this is a really critical time right now for Bitcoin. And we're going to have to do some work ahead of us here if we want Bitcoin to become what I want it to be. Bitcoin is the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. So how are we going to make sure that it succeeds? It takes work.
Yeah. So you're going right into the deep stuff. Why are you concerned at this time?
Well, I think there are a lot of threats to Bitcoin right now. I think that the Bitcoin treasury companies are a threat, and twofold. One, I think the most important metric that you can use to value these Bitcoin treasury companies, we'll just call them BTC companies, is the MNAV. The idea that there is a premium associated when they go out and purchase Bitcoin on the market with their equity. I think you can make a valid case for some of those companies. Strategy would be foremost in my mind. But there are right now, the last I counted, there were 130 to 160 companies now that have some form of Bitcoin on their treasury balance sheet. And the thing is that these companies are not focused 100% on Bitcoin. They are not Bitcoin maxis. In fact, this is just sometimes a copycat uh, theory or a practice that they're going to follow with MicroStrategy and think that they're going to succeed. But that's one threat. And why is it a threat? Let's just focus on that for a minute. So if a company has an MNAV premium, there is a premium to their equity over their underlying asset, which is Bitcoin. Then it makes sense for them to go out and purchase Bitcoin. Why? Because I can prove that they get more Bitcoin per share, and they have. Strategy for me anyway. But what's going to happen in the future? What if MNAV, which I believe should compress to one with just about all of these companies, maybe Strategy, Metaplanet, companies of that nature will have a slight premium. I don't know where it'll settle. Maybe it'll be 1.2. I have no idea. I don't care. I think that if we get in a position where Bitcoin ever has a market downturn and that MNAV compresses to one or less than one, what should those companies do? Those companies should sell their Bitcoin. And if you don't believe that, just work it out on paper. It makes sense. Now, strategies already addressed that. They said, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to raise more capital in outside markets in order to cover if we have any kind of an issue. And they're not going to. I'm not talking about them failing or anything like that because of debt. They are over collateralized by, I think last time I looked on their sheet, their assets under management compared to their debt they were at 12% debt ratio right now. That's nothing, zero. Bitcoin would have to drop down to $20,000 or something and stay down there for a long time for them to ever have any concerns. That's one threat. The other threat to the BTC companies is the fact that they are concentrating their wealth in a very limited area. Coinbase is the major custodian for all these Bitcoin BTC companies. That is a threat. Just as these ETFs, that's the other part of what I wanted to discuss, just as these ETFs are a threat for that. Saylor, I think that he, is a great spokesman for Bitcoin. He's done a tremendous amount for adoption, but he gets things wrong in my mind. One of the things that he's got dicked up is his idea that Bitcoin is not going to be subject to a 6102 attack by the government, similar to 1933, when the government seized gold. And at that time, his argument was, well, you know what? Why did they do that? Well, they did it because they needed to revalue the dollar. We wanted to devalue the dollar, but we wanted that gold first. We needed it. So they seized it. Most of it was held in banks. That was a pretty easy seizure. A lot of it was held by individuals. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people turned in their gold. I wouldn't have, at least not today. But the idea that Bitcoin is not backing any currency doesn't really fly in my mind, because why do they hold gold? It is a neutral reserve asset. It has wealth. if I'm correct, and I think that Bitcoin is the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind, then it has an incredible value as a neutral reserve asset. It should be on balance sheets of countries. I believe it is already. We are going to go through a shitty period here over the next 3 to 5 years. This is going to be a really difficult time. You know, if you follow fourth turning theory by Neil Howe, you know right now that we are in that. We're in the crisis mode if you believe in it. And that crisis mode should end in the next 3 to 5 years. I think that we are going to see Bitcoin come on top of that as probably valued in the neighborhood of $1 million a coin. So just figure out the amount of coins that are held on ETF exchanges or MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy is at 630,000 coins today. So I think it's a threat.
What does
I hate to dominate the conversation like this, but let me just continue for 1 minute more.
continue? Yeah, go on your thought.
If I'm right that there are threats out there, what is the absolute answer to this as a Bitcoiner? And this is where we can step back into the maxi Bitcoiner, the toxic maxi son of a bitch. You have got to hold your Bitcoin. You got to hold it in your fist with a hardware wallet, like this. You got to hold that thing. Now, I don't have anything on here, kids. This is a ledger. I'll throw that in the garbage here. I mean, it's not even, I wouldn't use that for anything. But you've got to have a hardware wallet. You've got to have self custody. You need to be running a node. You need to have software to interface with the node so that you can move your coins. If you want to be sovereign, if you want to be independent and free of this system, if you want to be out of the threat and the risk to what I'm discussing, the only way to do it is self custody.
Yeah. So that's your message at the moment. Those are one of the risks, concentration of the Bitcoin. And the other risk is having Bitcoin as a monetary only device. And that comes into the nodes, whether you run knots first core. Do you think that is also quite a big risk to Bitcoin? And I mean, are they really concerning, or are they just something that we have to fight towards?
This controversy right now over op return and the changes that Bitcoin Core developers are making, this is not a major threat to Bitcoin. This is a policy change. You know, every year, on average, every 6 to 7 months, maybe up to a year, there have been major changes and so you have Bitcoin Core version 22, 23, et cetera. In the interim, we have policy changes. That's 22.1, 22.2, that type of thing. All this is a policy change. I disagree strongly with what they're doing. The real issue is this, okay? So this is the threat. Don't answer these questions. I'm going to ask you some questions, but don't answer them. You don't have to, because I'm going to ask the audience. If you're watching my face right now or you're listening, I want you to answer me this. How many active core developers are working on the Bitcoin protocol? How many of them have what is called commit authority, or they're maintainers of Bitcoin Core? Who funds Bitcoin Core? Of the people that are involved in Bitcoin Core, who pays them? Do they have outside projects? Are any of them involved in, I don't know, fucking shit coins or something? I mean, there is a lack of transparency in how we maintain the Bitcoin protocol. Now, if you look at the funding sources, by the way, I think there's 5 now, core maintainers, and there's probably, the last I saw, I just read an article on River that said about 125 are active, I guess. I used to think it was a lot less than that, like around 40 or 50, but apparently it's picked up, according to River anyway. That was 2025 data. And you can, if you do enough research, you can find out who's contributing to Bitcoin Core. And I'm not saying there's any of them that are compromised, but what I don't understand is why Bitcoin Core is so hard over on changing the op return limit and taking away all filters from that limit. I've listened to the arguments. They don't make any sense to me. And if you want somebody who can do a better job of explaining this, follow Mechanic, Grass-Fed Bitcoin on X. He has some incredible YouTube videos that also question the same thing I am, which is, why the hell are they doing this? What is the incentive Follow Matthew Kratters on YouTube. Find out. He'll go as far as saying that Bitcoin is core developers are rogue right now. People have to understand if you want Bitcoin to succeed, you've got to fight for it. You know, we are a species that has been fighting our ass off for the last 200,000 years. Most of that time we were fighting against animals, the weather, everything you can imagine to stay alive. 10,000 after the last ice age, 13,000 years ago, 10,000 years, we started becoming farmers. Ever since we started farming, we got bigger, we concentrated, we went from clans to tribe to tribal nations, city states, nation states, regions. And guess what? In that entire time, we fought. Go back to Mesopotamia, go back to the Sumerian regime in Mesopotamia and look at what they were doing at 3,000, 3,500 BC, because they record it. Cuneiform was their writing, and they record it in detail. You know what it is? It's nonstop fight, 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 battle, fight, fight, steal, rob. And if you want Bitcoin to succeed, knowing that you hold in your fist something that is so valuable, people are going to want it. Do you think your neighbors are going to be thrilled for you if I'm right and in 5 years or 4 years, Bitcoin's $1 million a coin, and they see you pull up in a nice new car, they see you on vacation, they see you putting a new roof on your house, maybe you move into a new neighborhood? Do you think they're going to be happy for you? Do you think if the government comes to them and says we're in trouble, serious trouble, and we have got to recapitalize our nation, we're going to do it on Bitcoin? Unfortunately, we're going to take Bitcoin. And guess what? They won't say that because they won't steal it. What they'll do is they'll give you a bunch of paper cuckbucks in a bag worth whatever you think they are. Well, I think they're like paper confetti. I think they're like wampum beads. They mean nothing to me. I hold wealth with Bitcoin. So are you willing to fight for Bitcoin? I guess you can tell that I'm in a different place mentally right now. And I am telling you, I am convinced that we've got some battles in front of us. This thing with Core, I think, is a battle. I don't believe that they're aligned. I know they're not aligned with my principles. I don't believe that spam belongs on the Bitcoin network. You already mentioned it yourself. Let me ask you this. Is Bitcoin money, or do you view it as data transmission protocol, Paula?
Yeah, I'm a money maximist because the people that I really admire have explained why that's important. And I spoke to Jeff Booth the last time just on the Michael Saylor issue, and he said that there will come a time when Michael Saylor has to choose between the fiat world and the Bitcoin world because they cannot exist on the same rails. They are different protocols. And like you said, it is going to be a fight because people in government have it very good right now. So why wouldn't they fight? They are going to fight. We just don't know when. Even Jeff Booth said it could be 20 years. But you said 3 to 5.
Well, what I think is in 3 to 5 years that this crisis we're going through is going to resolve. And the good news is that if you follow fourth turning theory, you know that at the end of that, that's going to be good. That's what we have to go through. It's a cleansing cycle. It's called the crisis. We're in the crisis period now. But at the end of that, once we get through it, it's usually a beautiful world in front of us here. It's a reset, if you will. How can the government reset things right now? Yeah, they're happy. Nancy Pelosi, she came into office in 1985 or 1987, maybe 87. I think she was worth about $3 million. She's worth 400 million cuckbucks today. Her salary has at the most been, on average, it's averaged about $174,000 a year. Her husband's just as wealthy. They're not going to give that up. They are the absolute best example you can find of the Cantillon principle in effect. And guess what? This is not a party thing. I can't stand either one of these parties. I think they're all pricks. Mitch McConnell is a senator. He has the same exact history. He was in 85. He came in with about $1 million, and I think he's up around 30, 35 million right now. So what is the option here? The government is either going to default, and guess what? They're not going to. They're going to have to debase the currency to such an extent that they inflate away their debt. They could do that. The hopeful route here is that we have an explosion in GDP tied to AI. And that is possible. We could be living in the most abundant world in the next 3 to 5 years that we've ever seen. All I'm telling you that is as we go through that crisis, you have to protect yourself. You've got to have a plan B and a plan C. I have a plan A that doesn't involve myself being exposed completely to these people. My plan B is to actually escape with my Bitcoin intact. And I'm not going to discuss my plan C other than to say, you know what? I'm ready. And you need to be too.
Yeah, that's good suggestions. As we know, many people in the Bitcoin space are focused on price, and Bitcoin is down off the all-time highs. Many people are not looking at the nodes and the concentration. They just want number go up, and that's okay. That brings people in. But where do you think we are in the cycle, and are you still bullish?
Well, let's see. Here, let's check right now. First off, for anybody that's listening, today's the 21st. And we hit our all-time high just like last week or something, 100, let's just say 124,000. And today, right now, just looking at it, Bitcoin's at about 112,000. Okay. So it's got about a 10% dip or so. And I mean, I will tell you something. I'm shocked at how people have got their panties all in a wad in the last 48 hours over this. I'm shocked. I don't know what to say. You know, I'm assuming that these are people that are new to Bitcoin or short-term holders that have bought, and there were people that bought all the way up to 124. So maybe they're just, feeling the first pain that they've had dealing with Bitcoin. But, even the short-term holders, their losses are very small right now. I think about 30% of them are in loss. That's nothing. And if you look at the entire network, I think like maybe 1 out of every 10 coins is underwater or something. This is not a dip. And I don't even know what to call this. This is just normal. The Bitcoin, in fact, Bitcoin normally dips like 20, 30%. That's a good dip. 40% will start to get your attention. I'm not concerned at all about this bull run. Zero. The short-term holder cost basis is $108,000 right now. I don't know what the true market mean is. I'll bet it's around 80 grand or something. I have no concern about this bull market. There's nothing that I'm following that's giving me caution. It's true that there's a softer demand lately, but guess what? The demand has been relentless. It's been in the ETFs, that's been a fivefold inflow to outflows. Bitcoin demand, I'm not worried about demand going away. People should really be concentrating on the idea of a supply squeeze or where we're going to come up with all the Bitcoin in the future. Where's Bitcoin to come from? Because I'm not giving up mine. Okay. I'll just tell you right now that Bitcoin, if I have that Bitcoin geographically dispersed in a different wallet that I trust, guess what? I'm not selling that thing. You're not getting it. Nobody's getting it. So, who is going to be selling Bitcoin in the future? Another thing, MicroStrategy's not. They've already said it. They've got 630,000 coins and they said, hey, we're not selling Bitcoin. And if they do sell Bitcoin, the shit's going to hit the fan. People are going to be upset. I'm going to be upset. And I should disclose to people, I do hold MicroStrategy. It's one of only 2 treasury companies that I hold right now. I hope it doesn't influence my thought process here. I try and steel man my own arguments, but nonetheless, people should know that.
Hey there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help me grow the channel. Want to sleep easy? MicroSeed lets you stamp your seed phrase onto a small steel washer. Buy the device once and use it forever. I love it. It's discreet, precise, and easy to transport. Get yours below. For powerful self-custody with no backdoors, I recommend the Trezor wallet. For peace of mind with collaborative custody, the Bitcoin Advisor is a trusted team who can also help with inheritance planning. Just scan the QR code or use the link below. And check out these super cool Satoshis with over 40 styles to choose from, plus 10% off with my link below. Now, back to the show. So let's just say there is a chance that the bull cycle is over. You and I both read James Check newsletter, and he said there is a chance, and we all know it could be a more muted cycle, but nevertheless, it could be. Would that change your lifestyle in any way?
Well, I'm very fortunate in that I don't, I live a lifestyle. Many Bitcoiners are like this. I live a lifestyle with no debt. zero. I mean, I have zero debt. That's a pretty neat way to live. I mean, because you can hunker down and you can basically survive through just about anything if you have zero debt. And I do have income sources coming in. So, Bitcoin, I don't need to live on Bitcoin. Bitcoin has just given me so much wealth because of the time that I got into it that, just kind of what do you want to do? Everybody wants to store wealth. So you make wealth, you work your ass off. But then what do you want to do? You just want to store it. You just want to keep your wealth. That's what you cannot do in a fiat system driven by credit expansion to create dollars. You cannot. It's a debasing system, no matter where you are. So you can never store wealth in fiat. Hell, you can't store wealth in just about anything. It's very difficult to find anything, and you will not find anything better than Bitcoin for storing wealth. I can prove that. All you have to do is look at the CAGR. So I'm not, I don't even think we're going to have the cycles that we've had, Paula. I mean, I don't think that we're going to see that in the future. I really don't. So I'm not concerned about this market. I have right now anyway. And yeah, it might crash at some time. And I hope there are some Bitcoiners out there that have still got some dry powder. I don't, but I hope somebody out there does. And they just say, hey, I'm going to smash buy some Bitcoin today.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the cycle continues, and but not so extreme. It just because of all the things you mentioned, and I think some of these treasury companies might blow up, and it will cause something.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, it's a good point to bring up because I took that discussion and I said, well, what's going to happen when it gets down to MNAV 1 or below for some of these companies? I said, they're going to sell their Bitcoin. They should. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders to do so. And if you just work it out, that's where it goes. They're going to sell. So what's going to happen? You're going to get into a recursive feedback loop. And I'm not saying this has happened. I'm just telling you to be aware of it. And for those people that are investing in these BTC treasury companies, you'd better do your due diligence and find out what their program is. To be a successful, that you've got to be 100% Bitcoin, no shitcoin stuff in there. And I mean, I'm talking about everything from treasury bills to whatever, like GameStop. What a joke. But you've got to be 100% Bitcoin. 2, you've got to tell people you will never sell your Bitcoin. And 3, you've got to say, hey, guess what? We're going to keep stacking Bitcoin relentlessly, and we're going to go as fast as we can on the flywheel. Those are the keys right there. And if you can't, and then the last thing, many people don't agree with this, but I think you have to have a transparency in your plan that is put in front of the investing public all the time. You know, People have pushed back against some of these companies that have hired like influencers, podcasters, whatever. Natalie Brunell comes to mind there. Well, I think that the company is actually being very smart because what they're doing is they know that she has the audience to be able to put out their message. And it's important. If you're going to run this operation, you've got to be transparent and you've got to have a really good media platform that tells everybody what you're doing. And you can take that platform into the conventional capital markets to raise capital. And so it's not a dumb idea, but you better do your research before you invest in these companies.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard you say that price is set at the margin, but most people don't understand that. What do you mean?
This kind of ties into Peter Dunworth's discussion too. And I think he does a better job of explaining it, but I'll couple it in with a discussion on what I mean by short squeeze. First off, we should address whether or not paper Bitcoin exists. You have to realize to anybody out there that thinks the ETFs are creating Bitcoin that's paper, that is not correct. And if you do your research, you'll understand that's not possible. It's a criminal act that would quickly be discovered, and that's not an issue. Paper Bitcoin is going to occur on the derivative side of the market. Right now, from what I've looked at, I don't think it's more than 1 to 2% in trading days. And, we always can settle in Bitcoin at some time. So when I say short squeeze, where's that short squeeze coming from? Now, I'm not talking about the exchanges running out of Bitcoin because James, if he hears that, he'll want to like slap me upside the head or something. I'm not talking about that. There is always Bitcoin for sale and Bitcoin for sale on exchanges. We sold 1 million coins from 53 up to 93,000. We sold 40,000 a day from long-term holders, people that were convicted. So people sell. It's just a question of price, who's going to sell and at what price. That's all. It's buyer meeting seller. And it happens all the time. That's what markets are about. What's unique about Bitcoin is it's the very first time we have ever truly had a finite, provably finite asset. That's incredible. So let's just take a look at some of the market dynamics right now. I've revised my estimate. I think we're at about 3 million lost coins, but nobody knows that for sure. And it's somewhere between 2 to 4, but let's just say 3 million lost coins. The ETFs right now are holding about 1.3 million Bitcoin. And surprisingly enough, they have not been paper hands, even though it's majority retail investments. I think it's just the whole ETF dynamic. People invest in that and they want to hold it for a long term, or they're using it to diversify a portfolio. So they haven't been selling. These Bitcoin treasury companies now are approaching 1 million coins that are going off the market too. We have mined about 90, maybe 95% now. I can't remember exactly how many it is, but the bottom line is we've got 9 years left. And essentially we're capped at 99% of all the Bitcoin mined. You're going to lose as much Bitcoin every day as people are harvesting, so to speak, from mining operations. If you look at the mining, what we're producing 450 coins a day. Those ETFs I mentioned have been buying 3 to 10 times the daily issuance of Bitcoin mined, up to 10 times, 3 to 10 times every day. That's more than mined. And that's been over the last year. The treasury companies are about 2 to 10 times. It just varies depending upon how excited the market is or where their MNAV is. At some point, we are going to have one of these. Let's just do it to the positive side because it can happen to negative side too. I mean, volatility works both ways. But let's just say in that typical bull market run that you and I have seen and experienced where exuberance is off the charts. People are FOMOing in. They're buying too many coins at too high a price, according to James. What's going to happen? Well, normally you come to exhaustion. The buyer's exhausted. They will not spend any more at that particular price, and the sellers have to capitulate. What I'm talking about is this. There is going to come a time when we are at that point, and there will be a buyer for Bitcoin that is agnostic to price. It will be a country, a nation state, or a sovereign wealth fund. It will be a treasury company that is breaking into the scene or sees a unique opportunity unrelated to where Bitcoin's price is. And they are agnostic and they are going to smash buy Bitcoin regardless. They don't give a shit what the price is. When we see that, we are going to see price discovery, true price discovery for what Bitcoin is worth. And again, if you're like me and you think it's the greatest monetary asset in the history of mankind, somebody is going to spend a lot of money to get that Bitcoin. Additionally, if you look at the coins that are being hodled, it's getting, I don't know if it's because of education, but every year we are getting more and more people holding onto their Bitcoin for longer periods of time. So this squeeze that I'm talking about is inevitable. If it doesn't happen in this cycle, or if there are no cycles, it's going to happen at some point. And when it does, you just better stand by.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. I know you took some time off recently to go hunting and fishing and hiking, and did Bitcoin allow you to do that?
People that wait for the someday event, meaning they are just sitting on their life waiting for Bitcoin to reach a certain price, are giving up a lot of moments in life. And if you look at me, you can tell I'm older. Life is very precious and it's short. I have a 95-year-old mother-in-law who I love to pieces. And she looked at me the other day and she said that. She said, life is short. I thought, oh my God. So I try to live my life as I go. I try to do things as I go. What Bitcoin has given me is like a peace of mind, and it has changed my perception of time. times has it's I hate that, not hate. I don't like that phrasing, low time preference. How I view it is this: time for me is stretching out. Even as I'm getting older, and it should be compressing, it's stretching out. I am at peace. I have enough Bitcoin now that I'm not worried about where it's going in the future. I'm just living my life and I don't have any financial worries. I'm independent. So I'm getting to do things that I want to do. And yes, that is one of the things I love to. I like to hunt with a bow, and I actually haven't gone on my trip. That'll be here in the future. I'm just training for it right now, but I did go and do a bunch of hiking recently out there and scouting. And you can see in the studio, I'm working on a new painting from Prague. And you can do the things that you want to do in life. That is what the Bitcoin life is. And you're going to have to come to, for all of you out there that are, everybody's probably younger than me, everybody out there that's younger than me. And if you're stacking Bitcoin, you're going to have to come to grips with that. You're going to have two thoughts in your head. And you're going to have to hold both of them. One, life really is short. And the things that are important in your life are being with family, friends, having a lover in life, being someone that at the end of your journey, you've made a positive impact on other people's lives. Those are the things that are important. But on the other hand, you've got to somehow come to grips with what I'm talking about, holding on to your Bitcoin. Now, I think that there will be a day in the future when we will be able to have lending products built on Bitcoin. They're not here yet. I just checked into one recently. I won't disclose the company, but it ended up at a 14% line of credit interest rate just for my Bitcoin. Again, that's not going to work. Bitcoin is precious. So, I turned that down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. You recently did a video on X about the US not buying Bitcoin, and I thought that was really passionate and great. But I think your point was that it doesn't matter whether the US buys.
Yeah, I don't give a shit. I mean, I don't count on any of these people. I think that if you're aligning yourself with these politicians or a particular political party, I don't think you're really understanding the power of Bitcoin. Bitcoin should let you escape from that mindset. You should be free of that. You shouldn't have to be thinking to yourself that I'm going to count on anyone to somehow fix, help, support Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a serious monster. It is a virus. It is spreading everywhere. You're not going to stop it. And if you really want to, if you want to ensure Bitcoin's success, first off, for many people, if you're at 120 or 112,000 today, there are many people that are going to be watching this space right now. You've got money. You've made some money. Bitcoin has paid you. If you've been blessed by Bitcoin, then you need to give back. I finally got off my lazy ass because I wouldn't run a node until they developed nodes that were plug and play. And it's not just because I'm a boomer. I'm actually pretty tech proficient. I like technology. I mean, I've built computers from scratch, hardboards, flashing the BIOS, all of that. So it's not that. It was just philosophically, I felt like if we were going to get adoption, we were going to have nodes that you could just plug and play. And I got one. And it is. You plug it into an Ethernet cable and you plug it into the wall. And guess what? It syncs up to the network. It does really good until about 2023. Taproot protocol is introduced, and those fuckheads with their JPEGs and rocks and apes and all that other crap came onto the network, and then it slows down. You can actually see what happens to the network when you bloat it full of crap. So get a node. And not only that, learn how to run the node with your own wallet so that you can transact, verify on your own and independently. I run NOTs, not Bitcoin Core, because I don't think that Bitcoin Core is aligned with my values. Also, I think that on a bigger, zoomed out vision, meaning I don't think that Bitcoin's not, NOTs is not the answer to this issue. It's the step in the right direction. You can't have, if NOTs was, you'd have to get about 90% adoption in NOTs, which could happen. I'm not saying that's not possible. I actually think it could happen. That's not the issue. And for people that think I'm being stupid right there when I say 90% adoption, that it's hopeless to get to there. I recently posted something. I want to tell people this, that, in 1940, in that spring of 1940, Nazi Germany had invaded through Poland, all the way through France, all the Allied soldiers, French, British, Dutch, all of them, Spain. There were troops from everywhere, and they had been falling back, falling back, falling back until finally, guess what? The ocean was at their back, the Atlantic, and they couldn't fall back anymore. 400,000 troops, and it looked like the war was over. It was hopeless. They were going to be captured or killed on those beaches, and the Germans were merely just getting themselves ready to take over that beach. Guess what happened? 10,000 ships showed up, crossed the horizon from England. One of them was a 15-foot long sailboat that some young man got into in U-boat infested water, submarines, and with the German Luftwaffe over the head, strafing any boat they could find. And that kid took that 15-foot boat and made it across the shore to get those troops out of it. They evacuated almost all of them. And that could have been the end, but it wasn't hopeless. And it's not hopeless to run knots. It actually could make a difference. The problem is that you can't have 90% of people running knots and have a very limited person, just like Luke Dasher, and a few people helping him. So what do I envision? I envision someone stepping in, just like there are people supporting Bitcoin core developers, stepping in and starting a program to develop and back knots. Additionally, I want this to couple with a reduction in mining pool concentration. That's the other key. And if you get those two things done, Bitcoin's bulletproof in many ways, in my mind, not from theft, but its protocol is bulletproof. But we've got to do something in my mind.
Now, that's a beautiful story to
Well, it's
and
true.
yeah, a beautiful story analogy for what the fight is. And the one thing that you and I both know are there are incredible smart people in Bitcoin. And I do see that happening. I don't know how, but
Yeah,
that's why you and I still hold Bitcoin and we continue to fight for this because what's the alternative? The old fiat world that's not working?
yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah. So we're going to continue. You often have a message for people that it's not too late to buy Bitcoin. Do you think even at this point in the market in 2025, it's a good time?
It's changed, Paula. I mean, it has. If you're someone that's older like myself, getting into Bitcoin right now, you're going to have to make a substantial investment if you want to see generational wealth in Bitcoin. And why is that? Because Bitcoin is going up and up and up. It's getting more and more difficult to buy it with your little fiat cuck bucks, that little printed paper. When Bitcoin was down at $17,000, $16,000, yeah, that's a pretty cool time. You could buy a Bitcoin. At the time, you could have bought 2 Bitcoin for the average price of a very good car back in those days. You can't do that now. And if I'm right and it goes to $1 million a coin, you're not going to do it in the future. So at some point, yeah, you're going to come and you're going to say, hey, Jethro, like I said, that was my call sign in the Navy. You know what? Am I too late for Bitcoin? I'm just going to look at it and you go, yeah, jackass, you're 60 years old. You've been sitting on your butt. You've been listening to TradFi. And, right now, if you look at the hedge fund or just fund allocations into Bitcoin, it is so minuscule, it's ridiculous. I just saw a statistic the other day that their average allocation, there were only like 9% of the funds that they surveyed that actually had Bitcoin exposure. And of that, in fact, it might have just been crypto exposure. And of that, they had like 0.3 tenths of 1% for their asset allocation. People that are sleeping on this are going to wake up someday and be very sorry. And you know what? Great. Because guess what? The rest of the kids out there, the people that are young that are watching this, they're the ones they're grokking it. They get Bitcoin. It's digital. It's a digital world. They grew up in that world. They're the ones that are front running all these other pricks. And I'm glad. I'm so thrilled to think that they are out there doing this. So for them, all they have to do is just keep stacking. This bull run doesn't end. I'll tell you where this goes. Bitcoin just goes up and to the right forever. That's it, Laura. And so you don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is just keep your nose to the grindstone, keep stacking. keep in mind what I said about holding two thoughts. At some point, you need to make sure that you're living your life and making little Bitcoiners with somebody you find and having a good time in life and doing the right kind of stuff and living your life with honor and strength.
So really, it is never too late to buy Bitcoin because they're never going to stop printing.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I really do like that. I mean, that kind of like puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Because I don't think they are going to stop printing. I think that even though they're counting on AI and they're making investments, sorry about that, they're making investments right now in Bitcoin. You know what? I don't think that that's going to save them. I think they're going to get in a place where they've got to print. And so that means in the future, we're going to see more and more monetary debasement. And if you're not protected, you're going to suffer the consequences. So, anyway, that's what I think.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about with talking to boomers and the older generation, they're a little bit more set in their ways, but the younger generation are getting it. It's time for an upgrade, right, with our money.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. But the older generation, yeah, they have a harder time with Bitcoin because we don't like change.
Yeah, age is a real barrier for some reason. Well, it's obvious, but I mean, it's a real barrier. I've noticed it myself when I talk to people. It's like the older they are, it just seems more and more difficult for me to get through to them. Surprisingly enough, I've found the same thing when I'm talking to those who are engaged in either TradFi or live in a world where they're very set, like they've got it made. Well, guess what? That makes sense. I've got it made. Well, you know what? They've got it made because they've been very fortunate. They've been in a position where they could rack up tremendous gains. I mean, we're at the end of a 40-year bull secular market that is ending. But you could make money. You could be I don't know, you could be a donut sitting somewhere and you probably could make money in this market or could at least before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So, will there come a time, do you think, that you will exit Strategy and the other treasury companies based on what you said?
Yeah, I monitor it all the time in the sense that I think strategy right now, and this is not financial advice. I think strategy is the company that I'll probably hang on for a long time. In fact, I'm not sure I'll ever exit that position. I did once. I left. I tried to figure it out one day. It was kind of painful. I wish I hadn't done it. But I mean, I left about somewhere between $5 to $8 million on the table by being stupid with strategy back in 2020. And obviously, I wish I hadn't done that. But you know what? At the time, I didn't know any better. I was doing the best I could. And I still put the money in Bitcoin, not that much money, but I mean, it didn't go up as much. At the time, I think strategy, when I bought it, was somewhere between $12 to $20 a share. So now it's, I think, around 3,000 maybe or something. I don't know where their stock sits right now. I don't follow it that closely. I do follow, obviously, the treasury companies and the theory behind it. And as I've mentioned, yes, there is real concern there. But I'm not concerned at all about strategy. Or, like I said, the only other one I've done a deep dive on is Metaplanet. And quite frankly, Metaplanet meets the same criteria for me. And they are also using a market that I'm not as familiar with, but they seem to have really understood well. And the Japanese market's got $15 trillion of household wealth that is receiving just about no yield at all. So they are kicking ass, and I expect these new strike warrants that they're going to be putting on the market to really do well. So no, I probably keep those. I mean, I like to have a small diversified portion of these companies. It keeps me interested and invested in it, and I enjoy following them.
Yeah, that sounds sound. So, is there anything you'd tell your younger self besides buy Bitcoin?
I've done some really, I've done some things in my life that are really bad, and if I had a chance to go back, I would try to live my life better. I wake up every day. I try to live my life with honor and strength, and then integrity and kindness. And when you think about honor, it means you know what the right thing is to do, but it's difficult. Honor takes courage to make happen, and integrity is something that you realize that is the right thing to do when no one's looking. And kindness, that's a failing of mine. It's the thing that I probably at the end of the day that I fail at the most. So if I were to go back, I would slap myself up across the chops there and I'd say, hey, wake up. Life is short and you want to make sure you're doing the right things in life. So I do have some regrets, but I think at the end of the day, when I finally cross the river Styx and God's on the other side waiting for me or my family, I think that it's a forgiving spirit there and hopefully I'll be let in.
Well, I think you're doing wonders for the Bitcoin space and you've changed a lot of people's lives. And a lot of us really appreciate what you're doing, George.
Well,
How
thanks.
would you like to just leave the message? I know you've said run knots. What else?
I think this is going to be a difficult time coming up here in our nation's history and across the world. AI is going to be very disruptive. It's going to end up, even though they are, some people are lying to us. I mean, it is going to definitely disrupt jobs. It's already taking jobs outside of some industries because they're just not hiring. They don't need to anymore. So, you've got to think a little bit here about protecting yourself. I think that Bitcoin is the single thing that you can acquire that cannot be printed by any organization. So in my world, in my future, I gravitate toward things that cannot be printed. Some people will say gold, that's fine. Some people will say silver, collectibles, whatever. But Bitcoin is the one thing I know can't be printed, is finite, has instant settlement, at least near instant, especially in global settlement. And it is not going anywhere. It's just being adopted at a faster and faster rate. So if you're in a fiat world right now and you can't picture where you're going in the future, then just keep your nose down to the grindstone, collect as much of the fiat cuck bucks as you can, put as much into Bitcoin as you can, and sit back and think to yourself, how am I going to weather the upcoming storms? And what should I be doing for myself and my family and to keep myself healthy? And on the other side, when we get through this, it's going to be a great future, kids. And I'll tell you right now, when you get into the Bitcoin standard, when we finally get rid of these idiots and we're on a Bitcoin world, it's going to be a beautiful world. I hope I'm here to see it. But if I'm not, I have a really good feeling for the rest of you. It's going to be awesome.
What a great message. Thank you, George.
You're welcome, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk again. And I can't wait to see you in Prague. I'm going to try and find a house sitter again, and for my next year, and a dog. I got a kind of a not a mean dog, but just the kind of dog people don't like sometimes. I got to find a dog sitter, house sitter, but hopefully I'll get everything set up, and I'll meet you there.
Well, you have time. I'll see you there.
Sounds good. Bye.